Welcome to Enlightened Evolution.
I'm Cay.
And I'm Christina.
We're here to discuss the ebb and flow of our soul's healing and transformation through self-reflection, choosing intentionally, honoring thyself, and following your inner guide.
Thank you for joining this safe space with us.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Enlightened Evolution with Cay and Christina. We hope everybody is well. Today, we're going to discuss how our relationship with our fathers and what we observed from them during our upbringing impacts our romantic relationships today. And this doesn't have to just impact daughters finding romantic partners and men. It could be how sons also witness their fathers during their upbringing and how they think it's okay to behave in relationships based on what they learn from them. Whether we were gently guided and nurtured, feeling safe in our dad's energy, or if he was unstable, inconsistent, unpredictable, both will have an impact on us. So as a teenager, my first relationship was very young, too young, 13, 14 years old. And I think it's also important to say that I because I had a really good dad. He was there, he was present. My parents have been married for almost 40 years. He wasn't abusive. However, I expected all men just to be like him. And so when I was young and, my dad was the provider, the protector, a little rigid and emotionally absent. So that plays a part in it as well. But as I had in my very first relationship and then continued to date in my young adult life through my 20s, I just thought all men were going to be like my dad. And um, boy, was I mistaken. I was disappointed. I think so. I do think fathers need to lead by example. If you're a young dad listening to this, not only lead by example with your daughters, but also verbally tell them bluntly how men are going to be and what they should expect from their partners growing up. I think whether dads are completely absent and you have nothing to go on, or if they were just absent emotionally, we working hard to provide, but not really in the present moment, whether they were drinkers, abusive, completely tyrannical, narcissistic, whether your mom just took care of them and they grew into be this big man child. So you think that, you know, now you're in this relationship with men that you have to basically can still continue to raise, um, or if they're just nobody's perfect, but gentle and present and loving and continuously working on their emotional and mental well-being. I hope that we'll cover all this here and you'll be able to relate and align with what the message that we're trying to give, and it's helpful. How are you? Are you doing good? How was your week?
It's been crazy. This is it's good, and work is stressful, busy, which is fine. And then this week is just full of so many after school activities. There's no school going. Well, my husband's in school, but we're doing so many things like in the evenings and birthday parties and this weekend. So it's just a whirlwind, but it feels good to be busy for once. I have been living a slow life for a while, so I'm liking getting back into being busy. What about
Good.
you?
Good. It's good. Just got back from vacation, so I feel just well rested and rejuvenated, getting some sunshine. Had a couple days off these before I go back to work, so and it's a sunshiny day here in Michigan, which is pretty rare, so I'm thankful for that. Yeah, I feel really good, well rested. Um, I feel like I'm always busy, so it feels good to get the rest when I don't feel like I'm ever bored.
I think that's the big difference between having children and not
Yeah.
having children.
Girl,
Having children, your days are full.
Yeah, yeah, even, like, my daughter's at school, and it's like, "Okay, I got a couple more hours till she gets out," and I'm still preparing everything for when they do get home. So, yeah, it's never ending. So, I guess, I don't know, embrace your boredom.
Yes, I am. I'm loving every minute of it. We spent time with our friends and their young kids last night, and my husband is just like, "Are you ready? Are you ready to have kids?" And I'm like, I love them so much, but it's so nice to go home and rest and not have the screaming kids, and I don't know. I'm ready when they come, but you never can be fully ready, I don't think.
No, you can't be, and you love them. I mean, there's no other love like it, but let me tell you, it's definitely not for the weak. I'm sure you'll be able to handle it just fine when the time comes, but enjoy your free time while you have it.
I am.
So,
I
how
am.
is this subject for you today, being losing your dad recently and the impact he had on you? I just know your stepdad is just so wonderful, and I can't imagine how you must feel. I'm sure you must miss him terribly.
Yeah, I have a really interesting dynamic having a stepdad who I consider my dad. It's who I call my dad, but he was in my life since actually before I was born. My mom left my bio dad shortly after she got pregnant with me. There's never been exclusive conversation, but I know that it was absolutely not a planned pregnancy. And I think maybe there wasn't a willing party involved when it happened, if you catch my drift.
Mhm.
But so she was getting away from him. He was very abusive to her. She met my who would be my stepdad later on, and they became friends at that time. They didn't get married until I was like 7, I believe. But he was always over. His best friend lived next door to us, so he was always at our house, and they dated and stuff during that time. And he was I've referred to him as my angel, like,
Aw.
he's probably the one reason I'm alive today, because if I had only been left with my mom and my bio dad, I would not I would not have survived, I don't think.
Yeah.
He's always a very gentle man, very sweet, always very accepting of people, and I won't say that I could do no wrong in his eyes because he did correct me when I was being a little brat. But in general, like, no matter how I messed up, I could always come to him and talk to him, and he was always a safe space. Um, in the beginning of my dating and through, I would say, 15 plus years of dating and marriage, I did not find anyone like him. And I reflected, knowing we are gonna talk about this today, I tried to reflect back, like, did I have a type? And really, it's been all over the place. I did spend time with my bio dad up until I was about 15 years old, and then I cut off contact with him. Um, and I don't know that either of my dad or my bio dad had um, ref directly affected the type of men I picked. I do think it was more out of desperation. I
Yeah,
I was, like, trying to find a type that I had looking back at my exes, and I'm like, they're really all over the place,
same.
and I think the bottom line was that if it was someone that I was remotely attracted to and that they found an interest in me and were treating me like they loved me, then I was gonna go for it,
Yeah.
which is kinda wild. But, let's see. So I do think maybe my just desire to be loved was the main reflection of, like, how I picked partners, but I will say the things that happened with my biological father and sexual assault heavily impacted my relationships from then on. So, every single day of my life, I've probably had a thought of my sexual assault, because if I'm interacting with a male, things just pop into my head. Um, the ability even to just cuddle with my husband triggers memories of sexual assault. And so it's heavily affected having a healthy sex life with my
Mhm.
partners. Um, I mean, it's ruined intimacy a lot for me, and it's caused my relationship with my bio dad really caused me to dive into, like, black and white thinking. So, everything had to be good or bad, and I would label everything. Like, I in a broad sense, like, is this person good or bad? Yes, but, like, everything I encounter in my day also. And only now am I, like, unraveling that black and white thinking and being able to see duality in things and see that good people can do bad things. I talked in our previous episode about how I'm able to give my mom grace and kind of see how she became the person she is. And I do know that my bio dad was heavily abused as a child as well. Um, but there's some things you can't wrap your brain around,
Mhm.
and and I don't even try to so much because I don't even want to try to think of how someone could do something like that. Um, So, I there's always gonna, I think, be some unresolved trauma there. I work through it the best I can and trying to, like, remind myself, like, when I'm with my partner that I am safe and this is a safe space. He's not gonna take advantage of me, things like that.
Yeah.
H How do you feel has your dad influenced the type of menu? I know you said that you kind of just expected them to all be great like your dad, but
I did, I did expect that from them, and then it was like, "Oh, okay, the math isn't mathin'," and then you try to have these conversations with these men like, "Oh, you're supposed to be doing this, and you're supposed to be doing this," and I think because I had such a stable foundation from my dad, um, I would try to teach my partners to be like him. And tell them, "Well, you should be doing this, and you should be doing that," um, and that wasn't always right either because that did develop the black and white thinking that you said, because it's like, okay, if they're not doing the same things that my dad did for my mom growing up, then they're just bad. And I think that, I love my dad for the dad that he was, but there's some things that he could have done better at as well, that I mean, he did the best that he could, of course, but I think emotionally, um, I remember being a small child, and if me and my sister were not being good at home or giving my mom a hard time, she would say things like, I'm telling your dad, you just wait for your dad to come home." So he was the discipliner in the household. So then that also instilled in me that, oh, you need to fear men. And
oh,
they have to, you have to kind of, walk on eggshells and be on your P's and Q's when these men are around, because they are in the head position, the king of the head of the kingdom, I guess we'll say.
mhm.
And so, I also adapted that going into these relationships where I would try to be more submissive and suppress my feelings and watch my mouth. And that never really worked out for me either. Because although I do need to be respectful as a child and mind your parents, we, as going forward into an adult relationship, you should be able to express yourself. Of course, with love and respect and kindness, gentleness, but you shouldn't have to tiptoe around your partner, and you shouldn't have to be fearful of him in any way,
No.
but that felt kinda normal going into an adult relationship, because unfortunately, I entered adult-like relationships as a child, so I developed that trauma being young, experienced sexual assault as a teenager from my romantic relationships, from these, little boys I was dating that I wasn't comfortable having sex yet, and they just, they would take that from me. Um, and then moving on now into my 30s, it has still affected me. The sexual assault somewhat, that I've worked through pretty well. but just like this last relationship I was just in was very much like, okay, I have to watch what I say. I have to watch who I am. I have to suppress my authentic self in fear of getting in trouble. And leading into my 30s, that's still something that affects me today. And more so now have I been so mindful of it. I'm constantly reminding myself of it, constantly playing back parts of my last relationship. Um, like, how did I even get in this situation again? What do I need to work through with my inner child? What shadow work do I need to do? What has affected me to continue these relationships? And I think it goes back to being a kid and just being afraid, you're going to be in trouble when your dad gets home. And so,
And so that felt normal.
yeah, yeah, it did. It felt normal. And I wasn't, I mean, I think I remember being spanked once. Think I was like 5 or 6. And I remember saying, like, fuck you to my little sister who took my toy. Like, and I think I remember my dad still like looking at me like crazy, like maybe like swatted me one time, like I deserved that shit. So, so like I didn't grow up as this like big in this like overly domineering household. It was just the way it was. Like it was just a culture. I was brought up in a Greek culture. The men worked and they were the providers and the rule makers, and they were respected, and when they were around, we f we fell in line. And it wasn't necessarily a bad thing, it's just how it affected me. And I think I need to not put
Mhm.
so much stock in, "Okay, this is bad or this is good." It's just the way that it was, but we can choose something different.
Definitely. And I think, strangely enough, both although our upbringings were different, um, we both ended up in abusive relationships very
Mhm.
young.
Yeah.
And so I think that shows that, like, you can be raised a number of ways and still end up in certain situations.
Yeah, and I just think, thank God your stepdad came into your life, and thank God I have the dad that I had, and I just feel so like my heart goes out to these young people that had completely absent fathers because I mean, there's so much free information about mental health on social media now, but what about when there wasn't? Um, like the social media didn't really start hitting big until like our 20s. And so there's
Mhm.
people that had nothing, no example of any type of role model. And so they had to, watch movies and like look how many characters of men were romanticized in movies, um,
I
like
think about that all the time.
everyone always talks about The Notebook, like, that was toxic. Um,
Yes, yes.
or how about, let's say, Titanic? He was this poor, good-looking kid, and she cheated on him, Like, there was so many things that
Mhm.
were over-romanticized that you should not be following that as your ideal man.
Yeah, I kind of, like, wondered how we all got here as a society, and then I now view things more consciously,
Yes.
like sitcoms and even love songs. There's some love songs that are so
Oh,
toxic, and I
I
listen
know.
to them and I'm like, "No!"
I know.
What is the one? It's like Eminem, well, of everything Eminem is toxic. Maybe it wasn't his. Oh, I can't remember the band's name, but it's like, "It's really good to hear your voice." You know what song
Oh,
that
I don't
is?
know, 3 Doors Down or Shine Down or
Something.
yeah,
There's,
something like
like, a
oh,
whole thing
Hinder,
going around
Hinder,
social media.
Kiss
Hinder,
Hinder, Kissed by an Angel, yes,
yes,
yes.
so toxic. But
It
even
was.
in just, like, normal sitcoms that you feel are, like, family-friendly sitcoms, you see how, like, the relationships display, and I'm like, that's not healthy,
N
what?" But
no,
it's
oh,
modeled to be like, "This is the expectation. This is a healthy relationship." No, the fuck it's
absolutely
not.
not. No, it's not. Yep, my grandma, bless her heart, soap operas all day, every day. That is the least amount of good role models, I think, that were in soap operas. So it's just like, and I watched that every single day, when I was being babysat by her. General
Yeah.
Hospital, 3 o'clock every day.
So I think our parents are a little bit too, I don't wanna say to blame, but they contribute a little bit, but also just society in general
Yeah.
really contributes to our ideas of what is a healthy relationship.
Yeah, and like you said earlier, I mean, everybody wants to be loved and accepted and feel beautiful or handsome or whatever. And you said earlier, like, oh, somebody loves me, somebody's into me. And I think that we need to get away from needing other people to have this affinity for us because that goodness, I mean, you never think that you're going to be with a complete narcissist that completely is just love bombing you, and then you get to you start going into these stages of the devaluation and the hovering and so but I mean, people have narcissistic fathers and mothers as well, so it only feels natural. Some things only feel natural to us, and I think we need to be really intentional and mindful of the people that we subject ourselves to. 100%.
Yes. Learning
Um,
discernment.
yes. Um Thankfully, I didn't have a father that was the unpredictable, and sound like you didn't either, the unpredictable, just this instability. I mean, some people had to walk on complete eggshells around their parents, and a lot of what you hear is like alcoholic fathers.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Um, And so you start to gravitate towards men, if you are brought up in a household with a lot of drinking, that's something that people share with each other. And so you gravitate towards men that are drinkers. And then your abusive cycle that your mother has, you just follow right back into that because it just feels normal. And so I do think that we need to be more mindful on a lower level. I have this one girlfriend and I mean, not lower level, but less of an abusive situation, and, like, going back to the man child, which I think that we've all been there, like, I've dated a man child, it's like,
I married one.
yeah, you you literally cannot do anything on their own. I mean, I'm grateful that you work, babe, and, sometimes, but you it's the men that don't take initiative. And
Yeah.
they just witness their fathers not having to do anything except for go to work, and nowadays, a lot of men just won't work, and I don't know what makes a man comfortable to sit back while his woman pays for everything.
You and me
Does
both.
does all
My ex that was like that, he
girl.
was raised by his grandparents, so he was spoiled. His
Mm,
dad was an alcoholic and basically just lived off of his grandparents. So he never had his grandfather was a good example of like a hardworking man, but his grandmother did everything at the house. She did all the cooking, the cleaning, the organizing of parties and all the different things. So then me and my relationship, I'm paying all the bills, cleaning the house, doing all the shopping, doing everything, and he's playing video games.
did you ever say to him, like, because for me, I noticed that when I was in that type of relationship, which lasted only about a year because, absolutely not. Did you find yourself just waiting for him to take initiative? Or did you actually try to have conversations with him like, "Hey, I'm doing this and this and this. Can you please do that and that and that?" Because I find when it gets to that point and you have to continuously repeat yourself, you just build up so much resentment for this person that you completely become divided, and then it's so hard to repair a relationship after it gets to that point. Like, how did you know that
Yeah,
he was
and
did you how many times did you repeat yourself until you're like, "No, I'm not doing this anymore?"
I mean, it was years of it. It was years of our relationship failing, and at first, I mean, I don't he should have been doing his part, but
Mhm.
at first, I was not verbally asking him to because I struggled to express my own needs at that time. So I really
Fair.
struggled with saying, "Hey, I need you to do this." But it would get to this unhealthy point where like I would get so stressed out. I'm working 60 hours a week as a nurse on the floor and working a second job and going to school for my graduate degree and cooking, cleaning, all the things where I would blow up and be like, "Can you help me with something? Like, can you do the dishes? Could you vacuum? Could you help me pay a bill? Something." So then it would be toxic in that we weren't having a constructive conversation.
Mhm.
Um and then it got to the point where I finally told him, I want a divorce. And then it's like, oh, now I want to do something. And at that point, they always say, like, when a woman files for divorce, she's been done for a long
Oh,
time. And that
yeah.
was absolutely my case. And I did give him a good 6 months. Like I told him I was thinking about it. We went to counseling. I wanted to try everything possible because I felt like a failure for getting divorced.
Yeah.
And and I was also concerned about him not being able to provide for himself, which I shouldn't he was completely able-bodied, like, he should have been providing for us, and I
Mhm.
was worried that if I divorce him, where's he gonna go? Where's he gonna live? How's he gonna afford anything? Which fuck that.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah, that's too much.
Mhm.
It's too much. It's too much responsibility to put on one person. I just it's like, are they that person the whole time? Because I've been in that situation before. Are they that person the whole time, or are they just showing you the good parts of them in the beginning and become laxed? Or like, it's just like we're constantly evolving, but that's almost like digressing.
De-evolution.
Yeah, yeah,
Right,
devolving.
regression.
Um, and s
I know in, like, our Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, like, I don't understand how somebody could do that to somebody else. I would never do that to somebody. Like, I wanna wake up and make sure that you're taken care of just as much as I'm taking care of myself, and if somebody can't meet me at least there for the bare minimum to clean up after yourself and to pay half on the bills, and, like, some women believe that men should absolutely pay way more than them. And I don't even think it matters if I agree or disagree with that, but if you can't just wake up and do the bare minimum, I mean, we deserve more than the bare minimum, but how dare you come in here and show us one version of yourself and then be complete somebody completely different.
Yeah, and I think that's, I don't think anyone shows their ugly up front. And I think that's how we get into these bad relationships is
Mhm.
we are always putting our best foot forward at first, and then once
Yeah.
we've realized that we've got someone hooked and they're in, then the facade comes down and now this is the real me. I will say that my mom, like, right at the beginning of my relationship with him, she told me I was still in nursing school. I was working 3 jobs, waitressing, I was not making any money.
Mhm.
And she's like and he was making like 70,000 a year. He had a good job. He had his own place, his own car. He was doing all his own stuff.
Mhm.
And she's like, he wants to marry you because or he wants to be with you because he wants to use you. And I was like, how do you see like I was like, what? No way. How do you see that? Like he makes way more than me. He's taking me out doing things. He took me on trips.
Mhm.
But literally a year after we got married, he purposely got fired from his job, went on unemployment for as long as he could until they removed it. Then it was job after job that he would quit or get fired from. And I had to go and find him a job. When we moved here, like
Girl, oh my
I
god.
had my job already secured. Like, that's red flag right there, okay?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Hey, I drove 1 mile down the road and 5 different places are hiring, so, like, maybe put application in."
I've literally put together for 2 different men that I've been with whole resumes. Like like, "What are you thinking, girl?" I have these conversations with my me and my higher self get together daily, and we're like, "Okay, check in. What? Where are we at today?" 'Cause that would never happen again.
No.
Do you think like that's funny, especially, like, something like that coming from your mom or my mom, like, we'd hate to say, like, mother knows best, but maybe they could see
She was
maybe
right.
yeah. Oh my goodness. Do you think that did he disclose that he was like that before you guys got together? Like, not like, what like, not having the stability of, like, the same job. Like, the jobs that I've had each one for years.
Mhm. He had had his job for, I think, like, 3 years at that point. He did tell me that he had a foreclosure before we got together,
Mhm.
but he said it was of course, he blamed it on the girl he was with.
Of
They had bought a
course.
house together, and she moved out and left him with the bill, and he was not able to pay it, I guess.
She was probably
So,
just sick of
I
doing it by
mean
herself.
yeah, probably. I don't think I got the full truth
Right, of course
there.
not.
But at that point, I was so young and, like, I'd never owned a house before. I don't know what you're saying to me. "Oh,
Right,
foreclosure? Okay."
right, right. Well,
Young and naive.
I know. Well, now that we know better, we can do better. That's why we're here.
Precisely.
Yes. Well, I hope
Shall we
that
give them a journaling prompt?
we should give them a journaling prompt. Let's go something along the lines of whether your father or the male role model you had in your life, how did you witness them? How did they make you feel? And how do you think that they impacted you today in your romantic relationships and how you view men?
Or if you didn't have a father figure or male figure,
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
how did that affect you?
What characters do you remember growing up that you idolized? Like, what male characters did you idolize and how do they show up in your relationships? Another thing that I didn't speak on earlier that slipped my mind, I think that for the women that did grow up with really toxic fathers, the abusive, tyrannical ones, and they now have this notion that all men are bad, all men are evil, all men are the same. All men are not the same. There is gentle, kind men out there that will love you sincerely. And because you experience that in your life, you don't have to continue on and think that that's all men are the same. We just have to be mindful and intentional and not choose those men.
Yeah. And it's probably gonna take some time to find those men. I mean, sometimes they pop right up, but don't get frustrated if
Mhm.
all you're seeing is bad. And that's also the mindset of, like, if you think all men ain't shit or whatever, if you continue to have that mindset, that's all you're going to see. So you have to work on your mindset first
You
of,
do.
"You know what? There is a good man out there for me, and he's on his way to me."
That's right. Amen. All right. Well, we hope
Uh,
everybody has a good, beautiful week. I hope you have a good, beautiful
yes.
week.